up, everybody? Happy New Year to you and your family. I hope that you all had a great holiday season filled with love, laughter, gifts, and food, and all kinds of holiday things. If you guys are doing a New Year's resolution, more power to you. Some people have asked me what I'm doing for my New Year's resolution, and I don't do New Year's resolutions. I just know that I can't keep them, so I just don't set myself up for failure, and I just don't do it. So that's just not my thing. However, though, our church family right now is doing a 21-day fast for the month of January at the time of this recording. What I'm fasting, people have been asking me, what are you fasting, David? And my response to them is nothing. And it's always kind of enjoyable to see what they say because they're like, well, what do you mean? And so I have to explain to them what I actually mean by that. What I mean by fasting nothing is I have a really bad habit of doing absolutely nothing. Sometimes work can be chaotic and I come home and I just want to do nothing. I sit on my phone and I scroll, or I just sit on my sofa and I just daze into nothing. So I waste a lot of time just doing nothing. So I'm fasting doing nothing. Instead, what I'm trying to do is spend more time in the Word, spend more time talking to the Lord, and just getting things done that normally I would be last minute doing and running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get things done. So that's my answer. What I'm fasting for this 21-day fast is nothing. Also, you may have noticed we've got a new look. I changed the colors on our logo. I thought it was fitting for just a new look. I really liked the orange, but orange is definitely not my favorite color, although I love orange, but I tend to lean on the more green and blue. So after talking to some friends of mine, and they suggested I change the color, so I did, and got a photo shoot by the one and only Erica Manzano, which you'll see on the new cover art. She does a phenomenal job, so shout out to her. I will actually link her information below and on the description for the YouTube and on the description for the podcast. So if you're ever in the San Antonio area and interested in photography, Erica is your girl. I highly recommend her. She does my family's photo shoots for my brother and his family, and then obviously she did for the podcast. And I also took some professional shots for my LinkedIn profile for work. Also, the set behind me is completely different. I've actually moved my studio, all of the camera, MacBook, and everything into my living room. I actually thought I liked this a lot better. Gives it a better feel, I think, in my own personal opinion. If you guys didn't know, the previous recordings were actually in my bedroom, which kind of always bothered me. So I decided to change that in this new season. In today's episode, I'm really excited to introduce to you guys a man by the name of Michael Carrillo. He's a pastor out of Colorado and has an amazing testimony. He grew up going through a troubled childhood, entering prison at 19 years old at a maximum security prison for adults, not kids, for adults. So share a story of how his rankings were in the prison, what he did in the prison, and how he just wanted nothing to do with God, and how literally the prison was pushing him out. They just didn't want to deal with him anymore. And he'll tell that story. And then he'll go on to share how he got into a program to where it helps people that come out of prison to get back into civilization, was actually a Christian ministry. And he'll share how he met the Lord unexpectedly. And he'll share now what he does about his marriage and his new ministry that he just started here last year in 2023. This is actually going to be a 2-part episode. His story was so profound and it took some time. So I decided to go ahead and put it into 2 parts. So for the first time ever in life podcast history, there's going to be a 2-episode story. So we're going to start off with episode 1, cut that. We'll drop the next one the following week, part 2, and you get the rest of the story then. So I'm so excited for you guys to meet this amazing gentleman. He's a great guy. We've gotten to know each other. I encourage you to get on his social medias, which also I'll link below. So without any further ado, please welcome my new good friend, Michael Carrillo. Well, hey, Pastor Michael, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Just here, like I told you a little bit earlier, just got off of work, ready for a nice long weekend for Martin Luther King. Um, and I don't know where you're located, but I'm here in Texas, and it is going to get cold this weekend, so we are bracing for it.
Yeah, I'm out in Colorado. We're looking at I think like -15 by
Ah,
Saturday. So It's gonna be
We're supposed
horrible.
to get like in the teens, and our low is gonna be like 30, and that's very cold for us. So we're bracing for it.
Oh, see, you guys are lucky. That's warm. That's shorts weather out here.
Yeah, not us. We bundle up at 60, 70 degrees. We're like taking our jackets out already.
Oh no. Yeah, you guys are hated up here.
Well, cool. Thanks for agreeing to be on this podcast. I think I saw your post on the group for podcasters and kind of did some digging in your Facebook page and really loved your content and when I reached out to you, you kind of told me your story and I thought it would be perfect to share for this podcast. So you definitely have the floor. Tell us your story and let us know your journey and how you came to find Christ and how you know he got you out of your mess into where you're at now.
All right. Well, again, my name is Michael Carrillo. I'm 34 years old. Just celebrated my birthday on Christmas Eve, so another year older, more grades to show. And kids give me a hard time about it all the time. Kind of, aging a little bit, but still young and all that. I have a wife. I have four beautiful kids, three whom I'm inherited. I'm the stepfather of the three oldest. God blessed me with my own baby girl, so blessed with a beautiful family. Um, I'm from Greeley, Colorado. Live out in Eden, Colorado now, like a little town 8 miles north, close to the the Wyoming border. Um, my story, it's kind of typical from my area. To be honest with you, where I grew up at, we had a lot of gang influence. Um, I guess my section of Colorado was really heavily influenced from California gangs and Texas gangs, things like that. And so my parents, they grew up in the gangs. They partying, selling dope, doing the most. And I remember I was a little kid. It's just crazy those early memories, like 3, 4, 5 years old, running around the parties and picking up random beers and just drinking it. Parents
Mhm.
being irresponsible because my mom was 14 years old when she had me. So
Wow.
yeah, it was just kids raising kids, and she was a victim of rape, which is how I came about, but so she wasn't ready for that responsibility. And my dad, he was only a few years older than her. The guy who I call dad, he's not my biological father. So he stepped in and raised me for a little bit. They split up, and she got with my stepdad now, and man, they've been on and off for ever since I was a little kid. But they're married. They're got two more kids. So they're blessed. They're loving it. They're living for God. But in 1995, my mom and my stepdad were arrested, and they went to prison. So I went to live with my grandmother, and it was cool. It wasn't bad. She raised us the best she could. My grandfather, he worked on the oil rigs out in Venezuela, so he wasn't really around. So it's my grandma trying to raise two sons again because it's me and my little brother, and kind of with my brothers. I'm the oldest out of seven kids, so a
Mm.
lot of us got split when my parents went to jail. So I grew up with my grandma. I did good. I was a good kid for the most part. I enjoyed music, skateboarding, riding, athletics. I was in every sport you could imagine. Um, Great at everything that I did. And then uh, in 2001, my dad, he got out of prison and he came to see us. He's from Colorado Springs, came to see us, and he saw the path that I was going on. I was already hanging out with the gangsters. I was already shaving my head, throwing up gang signs, doing the most. And he's like, "No, you're not going to go down that path.
Mm.
It's just your grandma, because my grandfather had died earlier that year." And he's like, "It's just your grandma. Like, you need a man to raise you." I'm like, "All right, cool. You're right. You're my dad. You're supposed to be taking care of me anyway." So I moved to Colorado Springs with him, me and my brother, and it was good for a bit. He ended up going back to prison for domestic violence. I don't know, maybe like a year and a half into us going out there. So again, me and my brother were split up and separated. I still kept playing sports. I was skateboarding, um, and then I just started acting out, and I started sneaking out, started running away, gonna go see females. That's when I started using heavy drugs. I started using meth. and I was already still smoking weed, and started using meth, and started hanging out with the wrong people again. And in Greeley, where I'm from, we have an attitude out there. We have that, like, that machismo, like I'm better
Yeah.
than you, I'm a bigger
Yeah.
man than you, test me. So that attitude started coming out, and I,
How old were you again during this time?
at this time I just turned 14,
Okay.
um, and I had that attitude starting to come out
Right.
again, and you know, the event that kind of led to the next 15, 20 years of my life, I ran away to go be with the girl, started smoking meth real heavy, and when I came back, I had a real sense of like unworthiness because my I was living with my uncle, and he did everything for me, and he taught me a lot of discipline. He gave me anything I wanted, but he's like, you're gonna work for it.
Mhm.
If you want it, I'll give it to you, but you gotta earn it. So when I went back, I had this sense of like, like I don't belong here. I don't deserve this good treatment that you guys give me. So send me back home to Greeley. And they try to talk to me about it. You don't belong out there. You're just gonna mess up. You're gonna be like your mom and dad. You're gonna go back to prison. You don't got no structure back there. I was like, well, I don't deserve to be here. So send me back.
Mm.
So I go back to Greeley, and I moved back in with my grandma because my mom was still in prison at the time. And it was summertime, so I was running around all summer. When it came time for school, I tried to get enrolled into school, and I really cherished school. I cherished education. I was always very, very smart, but nobody had custody of me where I lived, so I couldn't get enrolled in school. I called my dad, and I was like, "Hey, pops, look, you either got to give up your custody, or you got to come and enroll me." He's like, "I'm not doing either. I'm not giving up my rights to you, and I'm not going all the way up there to enroll you." So I was forced to drop out.
Mm.
And at 15, at least in Colorado, you can't get emancipated. You can't get a GED.
Wow.
You can't do anything. I was just stuck in a situation I didn't want to be in. And, I wasn't providing nothing. And, my grandma, she was trying to do it on her own. So I hit the streets and I started doing what I knew how to do. I started selling dope again. I started hanging out with my friends, with the homies. And within matter of weeks, I had 12 gauge shotguns hidden under my bed. I had sacks of meth. I had money. Like 15-year-old kid just thinking he's grown, trying to do what he knew
Mm.
how to do. And it hit me that I had two little cousins that were there, and they were babies. And I was like, this isn't safe for them. I have to move out. So I left. I started thought I was grown. I left. I got an apartment with a friend of mine, with my partner. We were selling dope together, and man, it just went downhill from there. I started, uh, I don't know if I could say it, but like I started kidnapping people. I started like holding people hostage for their
Wow.
money, for the dope that they owed me. I started being overly aggressive, more so than I wanted to be, but that was the life that I was living in. And I don't know if you've ever been around those types of people, but when you're in a dope game that serious, you can't play around with that, because if I don't have the money, well then that's going to be me, not you.
Right.
So I ended up going to prison in 2005. Um, the guy that owed me money, he owed me $350 for an 8 ball of meth, and he didn't want to pay me. I had already held this dude hostage. I'd already kidnapped him once before. He didn't want to give me no money. So me and my partner were like, well, we're tired of it. And at this time, I've already, developed this leadership quality and manipulative, how to manipulate everybody. And of course, I used the assets that I had. I had my meth, I had my words, my mind, everything. And I pretty much coerced everybody into kidnapping this dude. And my plan was I was going to murder him. So, long story short, we kidnapped him. I took him out to the sticks and I tried to kill him in a cornfield, but, people stopped me. And I ended up getting arrested about a month and a half later. And I remember I was sitting in the juvenile detention center. And on my second court date, I told my mom, hey, don't worry about it. We're good. And I'm only 15. Ain't nothing going to happen with this. Uh, yeah, I didn't know how the system worked. So the judge, she's like, well, we're going to go ahead and dismiss this case. And I looked at my mom kind of cocky, like, yeah, I beat it. And she's like, we're going to go ahead and direct file you and charge you as an adult. You'll be
Oh, wow.
moved to the, yeah, you'll be moved to the county jail later on today. And you're going to go to Division 12, Judge Hartman. Kenneth Bucks, your DA. I was like, excuse me? I'm going where? She's like, to the county. I'm like, I can't go to the county jail. I'm only 15 years old. She's like, yeah, but your crime, like that's it's too much. We can't house you around other juveniles. You're too violent. And I was transported to the county jail, and I was a little nervous, but I already had a lot of friends, a lot of homies from the gangs and stuff, and they looked out for me, and they started schooling me, giving me more education, as it were, on how to be a better gangster, a better criminal, how to survive in prison. They were counseling me through my court dates and things like that. And I remember when I first went to the adult court, the DA, we had a bond hearing, and he said, we're gonna ask for no bail, but the bail that we're gonna give you is $500,000 if they grant it.
Mm.
So at 15 years old, I'm sitting in county on a $500,000 bail, and I'm like, well, guess I'm not getting out. Right? I guess
Who's gonna
cool. I'll
fork
just
that
sit here.
up?
Yeah. As me being a kid, being selfish. Hey, put your house up. Hey, put your car up. Like, you're tripping. You ain't even gonna go to court. You're gonna run. You're already talking about going to Washington. Like, no. So I sat in there, and eventually my bill dropped. They cut it in half, $250,000, and even through a bondman, though, that's still $25,000. I wasn't getting out. My family didn't have that kind of money. And the very first court that we had, um, when we started talking about charges and time, I was charged with first degree kidnapping, first degree assault, and robbery. And my judge, the DA, told me, he's like, I don't want to deal. I don't want to deal with him. We're going to go straight to trial. Don't care. These kids are getting worse and worse. And at that time in my city, we had murders and kidnappings and things like that going on, committed by kids my age up to 19, 20. It was all youngsters just, putting in work, as it were. So I was looking at life in prison plus 64 years. And at 15, I'm like, what does that mean? I didn't comprehend it. I didn't understand it. And so we go through the motions, and the time got dropped from life without to life with parole, then to 63 years, 54 years, 48 years, um, 36 years, 25, and finally it stopped at 20. And I sat on the 20-year deal for about 3 or 4 months. I was like, I'm just gonna take it. I just want to get out of here. I want to get my time started. 20 years, I'll be out in 12 to whatever. And because of my age, my lawyer ended up getting me a better deal. It was a 6-year sentence in a juvenile prison with an 18-year suspended sentence upon successful completion. So I'm like, bet, I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
Sign the deal. 6 years better than 20. And so I took that deal, and I went to the juvenile prison. And I got to tell you, I was in love. I was in heaven. That right there was everything that I had been working for. I was already trying to make a name for myself in the streets. I was already connected in writing like some of the top dogs of my gang. Like everybody knew my name already, and I was already connected. So when I got there, I had like high-ranking dudes already waiting for me. Like, oh,
Wow.
you're the homie, cool. Well, we got a letter about you. We'll take you under the wing. We'll school you. We'll do this. And let me tell you, gladiator school is real. That's what it was. I was fighting every day. I was gang banging every day. I was still selling dope in there. Um, you name it, I was still criminal
Mm.
enterprising in there. And the crazy thing is I would still go to church services. Mostly I would go just for something to do. You know, I didn't want to be stuck in the unit all day, so I would try to get as involved in things as I could. So of course, recreational activity, but I always go to church, and I sit there and I would listen, and it never resonated with me. I didn't care for it, and if we back up a little bit, when I came back to Greeley from Colorado Springs, I used to go to youth services with my
Mm.
cousin who was a pastor. And he used to take me to youth services. They prayed over me. They told me you have a calling, you have this. So I knew who God was. I've known who He was my entire life, pretty much. And a very tragic event that happened in 2001 is my cousin, whom I was very, very close with, like a sister, killed herself, and she was only
Oh,
13.
man. Oh my gosh.
And at, and she was 2 years older than me, so I was 11. And it's crazy because her and I were so close that my grandma, she got a call. She went to her room and she came out. She was ghostly pale. She had this look of like just disbelief on her face. And I asked her, I was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Nothing, nothing, nothing." I was like, "No, what's wrong?" She's like, "Nothing. We don't worry about it." I said, "Well, what happened to Valerie?" She looked at me like, "What?"
Wow.
I was like, "What happened to Valerie? What happened to my cousin? I know something happened. What happened?" And she just broke down and she told me. And since that day, I got very angry at God. I was like, what kind of God would allow a 13-year-old child to die, to go through that to where they actually killed themselves? And,
Mm.
like most Mexican American Chicano people, I grew up kind of Catholic, and Catholics automatically are going to hell, this, that, and the other. So I was like, I don't believe in a God that would send a child to hell. I'm good. Like I said, fast forward, when I was in prison, I would still go to church for something to do, and I would hear the words. I knew the words. I knew the Bible front, back, side to side, every which way. And it never resonated with me. It made me more angry with God. And that, I believe, that caused me to be more impulsive and more violent. Because if God is this loving, merciful God, why would he allow my cousin to go through that? I'm going to show you there's no God. I'm going to be your God. You're going to bow down to me. That was my mindset.
Wow.
And that's what I did. I would be as violent and aggressive as I could. I didn't care your race, color, creed, religion. I don't care how big you were. I'm going to make you bow down and worship me. And I did that. And me and a couple of my good homeboys, we set a precedence there for violence and the expectation of our gang. And I ended up getting kicked out of that program. I didn't successfully complete it. There was a riot between a lot of gangs, and I ended up catching another case in there. I caught a second-degree assault charge, and there was a riot, and I assaulted a guy. I caved in his orbital bone, and they had a flight for life. And I was looking at another attempted murder charge, and luckily he didn't die. And I ended up pleading out to a second-degree assault, and with 10 more years added to my sentence. So I went to the big boy prison after that. And when I got to big boy prison, it was a whole different world. I
Yeah.
was still focused on this. This is gladiator school. I'm gonna fight everybody who's not from my gang. And when I got to diagnostics and receiving, I tried acting up, and it was another gang member who I was beefing with at the juvenile prison that pulled me to the side, grabbed me like a little kid, like a dad does, grabbed me by the neck. He's like, "Here, sit down." I'm like, "All
Wow.
right, man, geez, you gotta manhandle me, like, sit back, bro, you know." And I was 19 at the time. I just turned 19, and these are grown men that have been doing time for decades. And he's like, "Look, I don't care what was going on in that juvenile prison. I don't care what was going on. Here, it's a different ballgame. We don't play that. You're not going to mess up my program and what I got here because you think that you're somebody." He's like, "You're nothing in here." I was like, "Well, that's not what they said, but I mean, okay, cool." So I went with the same mindset, the same mentality of I'm still going to be the biggest, baddest person on the yard. And I went to a facility called Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility. It's in the southern part of Colorado. And when I got there, I just started acting up, tripping on everybody, trying to enforce rules and do things that they weren't doing there. And that put a big target on my back from my own homeboys. And they're like, you're too political. You need to stop. You need to chill. We got a good thing going on." And I
Yeah.
was like, "No, I'm not doing none of that. There's no chill here. We do this for a living. This is our profession. This is what we do." I had the mindset of Leonidas in the 300 from that movie. What's your profession? Oh, that was my mindset. This is what I do for a living. Every day I put on that uniform, and this is what I do. And got into a few scuffles there, and about 10 months in, I was going to actually go murder the shot caller from my own gang.
Wow.
And there was, some political stuff going on, and I was like, "I'll do it. I got it. I'm gonna make an example of this dude." And me and two of my homeboys, we ended up getting caught on our way to go stab him. We seen him. He was in line of sight. We were maybe 50, 60 yards from him. I had my shank in my pocket. I was ready to go. We had it planned out. And somebody ended up telling on us, um, to actually save us from that punishment that was to come. And I was very mad about it at the time, but God moves in the ways that He
Yeah.
wants to. You know, and so I ended up going to segregation for that, and I was in segregation for 3 years. And after I got out of segregation for 3 years, I just, just kept doing the same things, kept acting up, and my name
So you're
kept
about
getting higher
23 now.
and higher. Yeah, I was about 23, and my name just started getting higher and higher. I was moving with the right people. I was politicking right. I was like Donald Trump at this point. Everybody knew who I was. And it was great. I loved it. I loved the fame. I loved the spotlight. I loved it. Everybody would just bring me gifts and money and food. And when I got back to population, I was still shaking and moving and making money. And I was married to my ex-wife at the time, because in prison we have this mindset of, I'm just gonna marry this girl because she's providing for me. I'm gonna sell her a fantasy so she can pay me for the services of this fantasy. That's the mindset of prisoners. So it came to a point where I was making so much money in there, I would pay her bills from inside prison.
Wow.
And I was doing well. I was successful in prison. I was doing good. I was tattooing. I was, selling illegal things, doing everything that I could do to make money. And finally, I got to a point where I was top dog in the entire state of Colorado. There was only two people above me. 23 years old, youngest shot caller in Colorado history. And I saw it for what it was. And I was like, this ain't for me no more. This is not what I signed up for. It was a pipe dream. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the politics, because that's not my job, you know. But it wasn't what people told me it was. It was lies and fantasies, and I got out. I got jumped by five of my old homies. I got hit with the padlock, split my head open, gave me a fracture in my hand, black eye. Nothing serious. It should have been a lie. It sounds bad, but in the
Yeah, the
grand scheme
padlock
of
does.
things, I mean, I didn't really feel it, in the time, because when you're getting jumped, I mean, you just curl up, protect yourself. And in the grand scheme of things, it was very light. It should have been a lot worse. They should have murdered me for me
Mhm.
leaving with the rank that I had. And you know, when I got jumped, that was it for me. That solidified it. I was done with the gang. But just because you're done with the gangs doesn't mean the gangs are done with you.
Right.
You know. So I still had to keep fighting, and eventually, I was like, I'm done. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this. I can't take it no more. And so I was moved to a facility to where I wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. And I knew a lot of I knew a lot of corrections officers, a lot of higher up officials in the prison, because I've been in prison for about 13 years at this point. And I knew a lot of officials and stuff, and they helped me out. And at this time, I still had an attitude. I still had a chip on my shoulder, and I still fighting, still acting up, still acting a fool. So that's the violent aspect of it, to paint you the picture of who I
Right.
was as a physical individual. Now, when it came to, excuse me one second, to the religion aspect of it, as I stated before, I knew who God was.
Right.
I knew his name. I knew what scripture said. I knew who the apostles were. And what I would do is, I was such a horrible person that what I would do is I would study scripture, memorize it, and I would go to a believer like yourself and be like, hey, so what does God say about this? Right? Oh, well, da da da
Wow.
da da. No, that's not what he means. What he means is this. And I would get into the scripture, I would dissect it, and I would flip it. And I
Mhm.
would give them a whole different meaning. I was like the devil
Yeah.
incarnate at that point. I would totally flip scripture. I would dissect it, and I relate with Paul, where he used to go and kill and persecute Christians. That's what I did. I killed them spiritually. I
Mhm.
hated them. They were fake. They were hypocrites. They never did what they said they were gonna do. They didn't follow the Bible. They didn't do nothing. Also, it's like, your God's fake. You're fake. I hate you. I hate your God. So I'm just gonna kill everybody here. And that's exactly what I did for a long time. And I started getting into some really heavy, dark, demonic things, to where I started studying the Devil's Bible. I got really deep into that. I started learning about summoning. I read The Key and the Greater Key of Solomon. I started learning witchcraft. I started anything dark and demonic. That's what I was into. That's what I wanted. Because at least through that, I saw results.
Right.
At least through that, I knew that something was going to come. So I ended up leaving that stuff alone and I started getting really cultural and I started studying the Aztecs, the Aztec religion, because that was part of my gang stuff too. So I got really deep into it, really involved into it, to the point where I started practicing the religion.
Wow. The Aztec,
And
right? You
I
said?
started learning the horoscopes of it, everything, the ins and outs. Um, like 90% of my tattoo work is Aztec stuff. On my throat, it says Mexica, it's the Aztecs. You know that I was living that life. And what I ended up doing is I became a priest of one of the foreign gods, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, and I would represent him at the Native American meetings, everything like that. I would teach about it, I would preach about it. I'd argue with Christians about their theology versus my theology. I was already doing apologetics, not even knowing what that means, you know. And and what I would do is crazy is I would get razor blades. I would cut my chest. I would cut my arms. I would cut my ears, my tongue, my area, because in that religion you had to bleed for the prayer that you wanted. For the prayer that you wanted answered, you had to offer a sacrifice of blood. So I was doing that, and as it came close to getting out, I would talk to my mom, and you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. That's not true. That's fake. That's false gods. It's that. And the other. I said, no, you're wrong. You don't know. You don't know what I do. Your God is fake. What has your God ever done for you? And I would argue with her. Argue. She's like, boy, I just hope someday you find Jesus. And I'd tell her straight up. I'd be like, F Jesus. I don't care. You and your God can go somewhere. And she never gave up. She was still praying for me. She would preach to me every day, and it would irritate me. It would stir up those spirits in me. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And when I got out, I didn't have nowhere to parole to. I'd already tried paroling, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 times. Got denied every time. And one of my buddies, he showed me this book. It's a resource book. It's called the Go Book. And he's like, look, there's this program. It's in Victory Outreach. Why don't you go there? I was like,
Yes.
what's Victory Outreach? He's like, it's a church. I was like, no, I'd rather stay in prison. Yeah, but Victory Outreach it's a pretty big ministry. It's international. It's in over 50 countries.
Mm.
The one that I went to, well, before we get to, we'll go ahead and get there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. My friend's name was Jerry Garcia, though, that actually recommended it through the Go Book. And me being stubborn, I was like, I ain't going to no Victory Outreach. I'm going to church. I'm Bible thumpers. Leave me alone. I'd rather sit in prison until my time's done. And I ended up with 22 years out of the 6-year sentence that I had. I ended up catching 22 altogether. And I was like, oh, I've been done for 15, 7 more. Nah, it ain't bad. I could do that.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so parole time started coming up, and I had all these elaborate parole plans in the past, and I've been on good behavior, and I did this, and I've done that, and none of it worked. So I went in there with just a non-caring, like snotty attitude, and the parole board member is asking me all these questions. Do you have a place to go? No. When was your last write-up? 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah. Do you care? Not really. Do you have support? Nope. Do you want to get out? Don't really care. Just attitude. He's like, okay,
Stubborn.
well, we'll have your answer by the end of the day. I'm like, all right. So I leave and go back to doing what I was doing. I think I was playing Dungeons and Dragons or something. And yeah, I'm a big old nerd, And so I go back and I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like, what happened? I told them, and they call me to the case manager's office. I go in there. He's like, well, you want the good news or the bad news? I'm like, well, I always start with the bad news because it always gets better from there. He's like, you need to find a place to live. I'm like, what? He's like, you got paroled. I was like, what?
Wow.
Me? I got paroled. They're like, yeah. are you sure? Like, can I see? So he showed me, and I was like, all right. Now I got to start finding places to go, place to live. My mom and my stepdad, they're on housing, so I couldn't live there, and I didn't really have any other family. I'd lost contact. I've been away for so long. With my buddy Jerry, he's like, bro, go to Victory Outreach, go to Victory. I don't want to go to Victory Outreach, dude. No, I don't believe in that stuff. He's like, dude, at the very least, it's a foot out the door. You can get
Mm,
out at the very least. I'm like, well, I mean, you're not lying there. I mean, at least I get out. Like, all
yeah.
right, all right, all right. So I wrote a letter to the home director. The home director at the time, his name was Brant. Um, Real good dude. Ended up being a really, really solid dude, a really good friend. And I wrote him a letter, and then I got a letter back, and it was actually from the pastor, Pastor Mario Medina. And he's like, yeah, we do have a bunk open. We do let people out of prison. Here's our stipulations. You can't have no sex offenses. You can't. Some others. Oh, be on psychotropic medications and things like that. Like it's a very strict program who they let in because most of the time the pastors live in the home with their families.
Mm,
I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'm not on none of that. I don't have anything of that going on. And he's like, all right, cool. So we get it all situated, get it all sorted out, and I swear, like it was like a month before I got out. They put my release date like a month out, and I swear, like looking back, I was trying to ruin my parole. I did not want to get out, and every time I'd mess up, the guards would look the other way. I try to bring people into my cell so I can mess up. They're like, look the other way. They're like, we're tired of dealing with this dude, or I don't know, maybe he deserves a break and needs to get out. But they would not. They would not write me up, and they did everything in their power to make sure that I stayed out of trouble.
wow.
So, that was really a blessing because a lot of times they're looking to keep you inside because as prisoners, we're a valuable commodity.
Right.
We're worth a lot of money. When you have that DOC number on your chest, you're worth a lot of money. And, they kept me out of trouble. They kept me on the straight and narrow. And I ended up the day, before I was about to get out. I remember I could not sleep. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. They lied to me. I'm not getting out. These liars. How dare they do this to me? Get my hopes up. Everything that could possibly go through my mind was going through my mind. And I didn't sleep a wink. And I had already given all my stuff out. I gave my TV away, my sweats away, everything that I owned, I gave it away. I was taking nothing with me but my pictures and some sentimental value mail letters. And I remember getting up that next morning. I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't do nothing. I had my bags packed outside the door. Everybody's coming, and they knew me as Havoc on the inside. They're like, "Hey, Havoc, hey man, good luck. We wish you the best of luck. It's good to see one of the brothers getting out. Whatever." I'm like, I mean, it's already 8 o'clock. They haven't called me yet, so I might not be getting out. I might not be leaving. And they're like, "No, you're leaving. It's just it takes a minute." And next thing I know, they call my name. They call me down to intake, and like it was bittersweet. It was very bittersweet. Like I'm getting out, but like I'm leaving all this behind. This my
Yeah.
life. I grew up in there, for 15 years as a 15-year-old kid to a 30-year-old man. I grew up in there. This is my life. These are my friends. These are, people that I've known for decade plus. I'm like, man, like it's sad. I cried a little bit, walking out the door. I cried a little bit, and then I remember walking into intake, and they're like, "What's your name? Give me your ID." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And I swear, prison has the ugliest dress outs when you're getting released. There's some khakis that are look like they're painted on, and a blue polo that don't fit, and some shoes that are made out of completely plastic. So I put them on, and he's like, "All right, you're free to go." I was like, "Where do I go? I don't know what to do." He's like, "Go through that door right there, and then walk through the hallway, and then go to the front desk and leave." I was like, "All right, cool." So I, wait for the doors to pop and make my way out. I remember I stopped at the front desk of the prison when you come in, and I put all my belongings on the desk, and I just sat there. And my family's right there looking at me, and the guards are looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, don't you got to go through my stuff? Like, I'm leaving, like, because that's the process. And they're like, "Just get your stuff and get out. Go home, get out of here. I don't want to see you no more." I'm like, "Okay." So I remember I walked to my family, gave them all hugs, and it was really awkward because I hadn't seen them for years, decades, 15 plus years, you know.
Yeah.
And my stepdad, I hadn't seen him since maybe like 2000 was the last time I seen him. So it'd been a while, and we get in the van, and we stopped at McDonald's, and I was trying to use a cell phone. I didn't know how to use a cell phone. McDonald's had LED boards up now, and I could see pictures, and they had the old slides back in the day, and I was like, man, this is crazy. This is a trip,
I
and
mean, it's a culture shock to you too, because I mean, like you said, you grew up in there, and in a sense, like you created a family and friends, and it's your reality. That's
hmm
all you know for what, 3 decades,
uh,
um,
no, I was in there for 15 years, for a decade and a half.
a decade and a half, and you
Yeah,
come back to what we know is the real world, and you're like, what is this? What
yeah,
century did I just walk into?
exactly. And like I remember when I went into prison, we still had the Nokia brick phones. Playing Snake on it, all cool.
Yes,
And then now I have this phone with the big old screen, and I'm looking at. I don't even know how to turn it on. I don't know
I
how to
can
use a
touch the
phone.
screen.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this witchcraft? What is this? And my little 4-year-old nephew, he's like, look, Uncle, this is how you do it. I was like, what? I'm not understanding like what's going on. Like it was so hard to wrap my brain around what was going on that it was just like reading Chinese to me. And man, I tell you, that was probably the most embarrassing part of my life, and that's saying a lot because in prison we get stripped out naked by these guards, and squat and cough, and like we're basically degraded and humiliated. But me not being able to use a phone was more
Yeah.
embarrassing to me than what I had to go through. But we make our way back home, go to Greeley. They make me some food. That's what I wanted when I got out, and I told them they made it for me. I had some green enchiladas. And
Oh,
let
that
me tell
sounds
you that
delicious.
it was delicious, but it wasn't. It hurt my stomach because I've been eating processed foods forever, and I was like, And then my mom, she's like, "All right, we'll go to the store. We'll get you some canteen. In words I can understand. We'll get you some store. I'm like, all right, cool. We go to the store, and I immediately head to the sweets, and I get all the little Debbie snacks, right? All the little Debbie snacks. I get bags of chips. I get instant coffee. She's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're out of prison. You don't have to buy this." I'm like, "Shut up. Just let me do what I do. Leave me alone." So I got all prison food and everything. And I was like, "Mom, listen." She held me accountable. She's like, "Let me get a pack of cigarettes." Like, I haven't had a cigarette in 15 years. She's like, "Dude, you haven't had a cigarette in 15 years. Why are you going to start?" I said,
Right.
"Because I can. Because nobody can tell me that I can't do it no more. Because I want to." She didn't buy me no cigarettes, so I'm like, all right, whatever. But that was my mindset. Like, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I want to have a drink, and I want to smoke, and I want to do all these things. But she's like, no. And then she's like, well, you have to go to parole to check in. So I went through the whole process. Went to parole, checked in, did all that stuff, and she's like, well, now you have to go to the church. They're waiting for you. I was like,
That's what
oh,
I was dreading.
yeah. I was like, about that. I don't have to go. I could change my parole plan. She's like, no, not happening. So they take me to the church, and let me paint you a visual.
Okay.
Okay, so right now I got hair, right? Okay, I was bald. I have horns tattooed on the side of my head going all the way around on both sides. I got my gang on the back of my head. I got my little hood name right here. I was wearing a button-up Pendleton with some Dickies and some Cortezes, and like, what's up, Holmes? I'm like, I'm free. What's up, eh? And I show up to the church, and the pastor's standing right there, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? He's the nicest man I've ever met. I still love this man to death. Him and his wife are great people. His wife Diana, great people." But I remember walking in, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, sir? How are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, Holmes? What's good?" No respect for this dude at all, for his position, for his title, for his building, nothing. He's like, "Well, let me show you around the church." I'm like, "All right, that's what's up." So he tours around the church, and he's talking to me about the program, and telling me, well, you got 24/7 accountability. You don't go nowhere by yourself. We don't smoke. We don't drink. We don't do psychotropic pills. Um, we read our Bibles every day. We Bible study. We do service. You guys are basically the servants of the church. You guys learn how to serve. I was like, It sounds like a bunch of, my little heathen mindset, I'm like, whatever. So I got to do it. So we get down and go back into the foyer, and he stops, and my mom's right there. And he asked me, "So do you have any questions for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What?" And I pointed at my head, directly at my horns. I was like, "Is this going to be a problem for you?" He's like, "What?" I said, "It's going to be a problem for you, homie." He's like, "No." I was like, "Good, because I ain't changing." He's like, "Hey, man, do what you got to do. Humble." You know what I mean? And I was trying to get a reaction. And so the guys from the home show up, and I go to put my bags in the van, and they're all giving me hugs, and I'm like, "Get off! Don't touch me!" Like we don't do that. We don't do that. Get off of me. And we go to the home, and I swear this was the weirdest thing that I've experienced up until that is they circled around me when we got into the house. They circled around me in the living room, and I had a staff member going through my bags, which is normal. I'm used to that. Go ahead and search. That's fine. You want to strip search too? We could do that too. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. It's what I'm used to. And they saw me that I was trying to be a smart aleck, and they're like, "No, just chill." And he's like, "All right, stand up." And they all circled around me. I'm like, "What's up? What are we doing here? Don't circle me. That's not good." They're like, "Just relax, relax." And they laid their hands on me, and they started praying for me. I'm like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And I didn't bow my head. I didn't do none of that. I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Say the Lord's Prayer." And I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "Now you have to do the ABCs. You have to accept Christ into your life." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And I'm like, "That's um, I guess we could do that." And so I go in, we sleep, whatever. And for the next 3 days, I start programming. I start doing the routine, and we go to the church, we clean, we Bible study, we spend all day at the church, 8 hours at the church. And I'm like, this is so stupid. I hate this. Like, I could have done this in prison, you know? And I was like, man, this is so dumb. And I remember on the fourth day, because I got out November 4th. When did I get out? November. Yeah, November 4th of 2019, I got out of prison. November 8th, 4 days in, because every day what we do when we get to the church is we would pray for an hour, and then we would go clean. And I never prayed. I wasn't praying. I didn't want to do it. They just put worship music on. I just pace, plotting my escape. How can I get out of here? How can I not program? Leave me alone. And I'm like, oh man. So on the fourth day, I'm just pacing. I'm mad. I'm just irritated. I'm just so mad right now for no reason. Just woke up mad. And I was like, whatever. So I just pacing, whatever, listening to the worship song. And I remember I stopped and I grabbed a wall. I had to grab the wall. I had to lean down because I started feeling really funny, like I was gonna be sick. So I'm leaning on the wall. I'm like, man, what's going on? And I started getting really, really, really hot. And I started feeling my chest get really tight. Then my stomach started to hurt. And I started getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I was like, man, what's going on? What's going on? The next thing I know, just tears just flowing down my eyes. I'm bawling like a baby. I got snot running out of my nose. And I'm just like sobbing out loud. And I don't cry. I'm not a crier. I don't like to cry. And out of my mouth, I just started saying, God, forgive me for everything I've done. I'm sorry for this sin. I'm sorry for that sin. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for that. God, please forgive me for everything that I've done. I don't know what this is, but I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live this life anymore. And I didn't even know what I was saying. I just started like word vomit. And the brothers, they all stopped praying and they just looked at me. And when I got done, I looked up and they were all just looking at me like wide-eyed, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't think I'm okay. No, I don't think I'm okay. I don't know." And so you would think that's where, like, oh yeah, Michael starts changing his life. Nah, kept acting a fool, still kept trying to escape, still trying to fight everybody in there every day. But it was a process. I had to go through the
Oh,
process.
yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this first part of Michael Carrillo's story. Stay tuned next week because we will go through part 2 of Michael's story, and we'll hear about how his transformation journey came from where he was before he met Christ to where he is now after meeting Christ. We'll see what ministries he's gone through, the trouble even doing ministry, and the process of the transformation from his past, which I'm really excited about for you guys to hear. So tune in next week for part 2 of Michael Carrillo's story. Hey, and by the way, if you haven't, check out my brand new website. You'll find episodes that you can listen to. You'll find people that I've partnered with that have partnered with the show, such as Abba Father's Christian Stores, like I always mention, as well as contact information for Erica Manzano, who took pictures for the podcast. You'll find all that information on there. You can even contact me if you'd like. If you have any guest recommendations that you think that would be a great fit for the show, you can actually reach out to me on the website. I would really appreciate that. So visit www.thelifestoriespodcast.com. Again, that's www.thelifestoriespodcast.com. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps out a lot. And if you're listening to the show on any of the major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or any one of those, please, if you can, just leave a quick review. Tell you how you like the show. It gets the show in the algorithms, which I'm really excited about. Up until just a few weeks ago, you weren't able to find the Life Stories podcast by just typing it on YouTube, but now you can find it, which means people are viewing it and people are liking it. So thank you so much. Like I said, I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm not trying to be someone famous or YouTube or anything like that. I just want the story of Jesus to go out into the world. And it's not even about me. It's about these people sharing their stories to help you going through something similar. So that's the goal of the Life Stories podcast. So until next week, have a great weekend. Have a great week. And tune in next week for part 2 of Michael Carrillo's story right here on the Life Stories podcast.